Hello, welcome to part 2 of Positive Classroom Management for the Music Classroom. If you have not listened to part 1, you can find a link to it in the video description below or go to the Fine Arts webpage at sde.ok.gov/arts. Once again, here is Jenny Potter.
Today, I will be talking with you about reactive classroom management. It is my hope that you will find this information to be useful and valuable to your current and future teaching. As Wang and Wang stated, effective teachers produce results from a classroom that is predictable, reliable, and consistent. That being said, you will have far less reactive classroom management encounters when the proactive processes and elements as presented in the first webinar are consistently put into practice in your music classroom. As teachers, one of the most important aspects to our classroom management is to be consistent. Being consistent means many things, but I'm going to speak of it in terms of the cues that we use with our students, the signals we use with our students, and very importantly, the consequences that we choose to enact with our students. All of these things will help our students know and understand our expectations for our music classrooms while providing them a space in which they can grow academically, socially, and emotionally. Some key aspects to focus on in terms of what we can be consistent with in our classrooms are procedures, for example. So if I'm asking my first graders to get rhythm sticks, I need to make sure that I have a consistent procedure in place for them so they understand exactly what to do and what that process looks like. Another procedure I might need to make sure that is consistent with my students is how to choose a partner for a singing game, or even something as simple as getting hand sanitizer from a different part of your classroom. It's also important to be consistent in giving your students time to repeat actions and tasks. This means that your students need to practice those actions and tasks or those procedures in order to know exactly what to do. And this does take time, so that practice is very effective and it's very helpful for all of the people in your classroom. And lastly, we need to be consistent in allowing our students to know exactly what to expect. And when we let our students know consistently what to expect in our classroom, that takes a lot of their questions and uncertainty off of the table. So one way that you can help yourself to be consistent with your classroom management in your classroom is to develop a plan. So when it comes to classroom management, particularly reactive classroom management, many researchers do suggest that you have a plan for what you might do when something goes on in your classroom that you do not desire in terms of behavior. The things that might enter into how your plan is put into place or formulated are depending on the subject matter you teach. Are you teaching elementary general music? Are you teaching high school band or orchestra or choir? Are you at the middle school, secondary general music level? Also consider the grade levels you are teaching. My plan might look different in a preschool music classroom than it might in my 5th grade classroom with them. The length of your class periods could also definitely affect the development of your plan. For example, I know that there are some elementary general music teachers whose class periods are 25 minutes and others who are 55 minutes. So my plan might look very differently based on how long I see my students every class period or even during each week. And there are also other several elements that you might factor into that plan as of your personality, the space that you're teaching in, and the culture of your building. The ultimate goal, of course, in all of our classroom management is to be positive and proactive, but clearly we cannot prevent everything from happening in our classrooms. So as I said, it's not entirely plausible to be able to prevent every potential and possible behavioral issue that might arise in your music classroom. Therefore, it's wise for all of us to have somewhat of a reactive classroom management toolbox or strategies to rely on when those moments do occur in our classrooms when a student or students are struggling with their behavior. In my opinion, I believe that the most One of the most effective ways to curtail a behavioral issue from escalating is to respond calmly as a teacher. This helps show your students that you are not engaging in a power struggle, and you also show the student that he or she is not, quote, pushing your buttons while you can keep your composure. The tone of voice that we use as a teacher when we are responding reactively to our students is also very important. We need to be kind, respectful, professional, also hoping that we've built that trust in those relationships with our students. So our tone of voice is positive, yet firm when it needs to be. So think about how that might influence how your students respond to you. And of course, all of these are being said within the context of knowing the people in your classroom first and foremost. Another strategy that's been very useful is to use your proximity reactively. We talked about it being used as a positive strategy to prevent something from happening, but if you know your students, and I know that we all do, and I'm looking at my room of kindergartners and someone is about to start talking to his or her neighbor, all I need to do sometimes is walk over there, use my nearness, and that conversation will stop. It's always an idea to give our students a choice when they've chosen to do something that is not meeting our expectations. And of course, we need to practice those and be consistent with what types of choices we give our students. We can always ask our students to walk to a calm space in our classroom to calm down, but we also need to make sure that we are calm when we send that student to that space. And when we regroup, we have a calm and decided conversation. We as teachers can always provide a consequence to our student, and that consequence needs to match the quote-unquote offense or the action that the student took that we did not find to be meeting our expectations. Oftentimes, teachers give their students the choice of providing themselves with their own consequence, but again, examples would need to be given so our students know what kind of parameters they might need to be working with. Another strategy, when a student chooses to do something that does not meet your expectations, you can stand or sit with that student and you can both calmly count backwards from 10 to 0. And when you're ready, you can have that conversation. And of course, ultimately, we want our students to learn how to self-regulate their own behavior in our classroom, and they can have ownership of their positive presence in our classroom so they can learn and grow. I think as far as the adult and the teacher in the room, it's important for us to know what our triggers are. And what I mean by that are the things that might frustrate me or kind of, quote, get under my skin may not be the same for my colleague. And for example, when I taught kindergarten, and I love kindergarten, they wanted to be right close to me and they loved to kind of poke me in the side to get my attention. And that's not something that I liked very much. And we talked calmly about, I have my bubble of space and you have your bubble of space, and we're going to take a breath. And you're going to try to get my attention a different way. So you need to know those things about yourself and not let them overwhelm you, and figure out how do you want to address that so your students understand you as well. I think it's very important that we realize that every day really is a new day in our classrooms. So when things might seem to be getting tough, we need to remember to take a moment and remind ourselves that each class period, we as the teacher have the ultimate choice to hit our reset button and provide the next group of students or the next activity that we're doing with our students in a way that is positive, safe, and welcoming so they can learn and grow. I hope that this information has been helpful to you today, and I wish you all the best in your positive classroom management endeavors. Did you get that?